Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Family Treehouse, a podcast series brought to you by Storied, where I chat with people who have a passion for genealogy, storytelling, or both. I'm your host, Heather Haunert. Today we record, so I love that we get to record on Indigenous Peoples Day. I think it's a perfect opportunity for us to honor our Native histories, identities, and living communities. And it's the perfect day to welcome our guest. Our guest today is Aimee Rose-Haynes, and she is a proud citizen of the Cherokee Nation. Excited to talk to her about that. She is also a member of the Association of Professional Genealogists and a public speaker devoted to reconnecting people with their lost heritage and biological families. She's worked hundreds of cases in genetic genealogy, helping adoptees, donor-conceived individuals, and those with unknown parentage find answers through DNA analysis and historical records. Aimee's expertise shines in complex research, and she brings a passionate voice for ethical genealogy and the responsible use of DNA in family research. I love that, close to the heart. Aimee, welcome to the show. So excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I love you have such a great combination. I love you know, the Cherokee Nation part of it, and I'm excited to talk about that. And then just also DNA. Everybody's always just so interested in DNA and how that fits into their story.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
excited to talk about that. So Aimee, let's start by having you tell us about your background, how you got started in family history, storytelling, the whole shebang. What got you started? What got you hooked?
So the short version of the story is my daughter had a rare disorder. Doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. I was not sleeping. My husband wasn't sleeping. We were not sure that my child was just going to stop breathing in the middle of the night. We literally had her in our bedroom, like sleeping with us because of that fear. In and out of the hospital. She'd go in and stay for a week, come home for a couple of days. She'll have a 2 week stay. She'd come home for a little while, especially in that October to January timeframe was really, really bad. So the
Yeah.
doctors couldn't figure it out. They were giving us all these different diagnoses that were not fitting, were not helping her when they had the treatment. And so 23andMe at that time was doing a DNA test and they were toting them to be for medical research. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, if doctors can't figure it out, we're going to test everybody in the family and hope maybe they figure something out. They're doing all this cool testing on all of these DNA kits across all around the world, doing this medical research. Maybe they might stumble onto something weird in our DNA, maybe.
Yeah.
While that was going on, Apple was doing their Apple University. So you could have this little app on your phone and download all of these textbooks for free. And they had genetics, medical genetic textbooks. And so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm not sleeping anyway. Let's just kind of read a
Yeah.
little bit more about genetics. And so that's what I did. And my husband and I were there one night and we are just looking at the all the little letters in her genetic makeup, all of the mine and all of these little things and what's different, what's the same. And there's a disorder that we ran across that kind of matched what was going on with her. We're like,
Yeah.
huh, this kind of fits. Not all the puzzle pieces, but it kind of fits. So we took it to our doctor and they were like, I don't think it's that, but we'll go ahead and test her. The test is positive. I think this might be a false positive. Let's retest her. Positive. Okay, we're gonna do it one more time. We're just gonna test her one more time and then we're gonna call it good. And it was positive. So that
Wow.
diagnosis had led to another diagnosis. So what she has is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is not genetic on her part as of now. It's the hypermobility type, but what goes along with that is a mast cell disorder. That is what she was suffering from the whole time, going into anaphylaxis for no reason. Like she had rashes, she had hives, she was swelling. The angioedema on her face was awful. So we
Mhm.
had that figured out and solved. And I was like, I have DNA kits across 3 or 4 generations of my family. What else could I do with this? And so I
Yeah.
started to research more about genetic genealogy, and we had a mystery in our family. My great grandfather was born in 1920 in Seattle, and I was like, well, he never wanted to know who his birth parents were, but he's passed away. So why don't I try to figure it out? Maybe there's some family medical history that we might need to know. So
Yeah.
I ended up figuring out that 1920s adoption story and figuring out where his family came from and who they were and a little bit about why he was in the being born and put up for adoption in the first place, which actually kind of led to more questions than answers, which is kind of crazy. So that's what started it. And then I fell into the lap of another person that was having their family line researched on Facebook as up at middle of the night when I should be sleeping and just scrolling through Facebook. And somebody was saying, hey, I need help to figure out who my mom's birth father is. We don't know who it
Yeah.
is. It's been a mystery. I have this organization trying to help me. They can't quite figure it out. And I was like, well, I've only solved one and it's my own family, but I'm happy to try to help you. And so we figured it out. Her birth father was born in Panama, and that was why the organization wasn't able to figure it out so easily. So
Yeah.
that's what started that whole genetic genealogy bug. It has bitten me and it has not left since.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. Like that was not at all. I have not had one other guest that is their, that's kind of how
Yeah,
they got hooked with it. That is incredible.
I blame
So
my child. It's all her
how
fault.
old, how old was she when that started? Was she a
Fifth,
baby?
sixth grade. She was fifth to
Oh,
sixth grade. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Wow. Oh my gosh. That is
She
just, that's
is
incredible.
20 years old now.
Yeah.
She's about to graduate with her associate's degree in college and trying to figure out if she's going to go work a big girl job or go for her bachelor's degree. So she's doing great. We have a good treatment option for her.
Awesome.
She doesn't go into those episodes anymore. It's been
Yeah.
great. We actually celebrate every year that goes by that she doesn't go into anaphylaxis. And I think we're up to year 4 now.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's so good to hear. And when you said that she's 20 now, was like blown away because I'm like, there is no way Aimee has a 20-year-old.
I have
That
a
is
20-year-old
crazy.
and a 22-year-old.
Wow. You do not look like that at all.
Thank
Not
you.
at all. Well, that is awesome. That's incredible. And so I want to talk just briefly. So your grandfather, he knew he was adopted
He always
when
knew.
he did. Okay.
His adopted mother, Amy, who I'm named after, always told him it was never a secret. He was the only child that they ever had, and he grew up with the amazing parents. He says, "Why do I need to figure out who gave me away when I have great parents?" And so
Yeah.
that's the way it was. And I
Yeah.
feel like even though I was able to identify who his birth parents were when he didn't want to know who they were, I it was after he passed away. So I feel like that
Yeah.
was enough respect for him to do it after
Absolutely.
he had passed.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and I love, just kind of thinking that through. And when I did your bio, for me, that ethical part of it is just so, so important. And
Yeah.
I know in my family, I had, an aunt, that she's not that much older than me, weird family dynamics, but the story was that they thought that my maternal grandfather potentially had other kids, and it was kind of a double cousins type thing, and
Yeah.
my aunt was just adamant that she wanted them tested, and the boys did not want to be tested, and I
Not
said,
everybody wants to know.
no, you have got to respect that. I think that is so incredibly important to
Yeah.
respect their wishes. So I love, waiting until after he passed. Is I just think that's
Mhm.
important. So that's great. Amy, why do you think storytelling is such an important part of an aspect of family history?
I think it's like one of the most important things ever. It's more important than your family tree, having that whole tree documented, because if you look at your family tree, it's just a bunch of names. You
Yeah.
might know that the relationships, this is a great grandma, this is a third cousin, whatever, but you don't know who those people are. Without having those family stories being passed down and being shared through the generations, it's just a bunch of names that mean nothing to you. I have my great grandmother, and on paper, she's just my great grandmother with a really cool name. Her name is Anna Wade. And
Yeah.
if we don't tell her story, my kids won't even know what kind of person she was. What did she like to do? What were her interests? They did just see a name. That was it. And it means literally nothing to them. I was doing family research for a client a couple of months, about 2 months ago now, I think. And I just happened to be in the newspaper in this area where she was from. And I usually, as genealogists that are in this field, we usually kind of tend to neglect our family trees ourselves. And I just happened to be in the same area where her family was from and where she was from for another client. I was like, let's just go ahead and see if anything's new in the newspaper. And so I was like, put Anna Wake Welch in the newspaper in the search bar, and up pops an article from 1934, I think, for a cake recipe. That would have been
I love
lost if I wouldn't have stumbled on that little
that.
piece of evidence. And I'm sitting there calling my family members like, "Hey, I found this recipe." And my second cousin was like, "Hey, I've had that cake of hers before. It is an amazing cake, and I'm so glad you found that because we didn't know this recipe even existed. It was just something that she had made. And here you have it in print. And of course, if you stumble on a nearly 100-year-old cake recipe, what do you do with it? You not only share it to the family, but you make it. You destroy your kitchen and make a mess, and you try to
For
follow the
sure.
steps on her recipe and try to guess because one of the criteria in that recipe was a moderate oven. I was like, what the heck is a moderate oven? Like, I don't know what temperature that is. My stove has numbers, not moderate. So I had to guess, and I put it on like 350, and
Yeah,
I let it bake until my little toothpick came out clean. And I wasn't expecting much from a nearly 100-year-old recipe, but you know what? It wasn't bad. It was
that's
not bad at all. And it was a pretty cool memory that I got to make and a little connection to my great grandmother, who is in my family tree. That is not just a name. We have a
yeah,
connection to her with these stories.
yeah, yeah. I love that so much, and the fact that your cousin had the cake, like
Yeah,
that blows
yeah,
me away.
yep.
So a couple of things I have to ask. So first of all, I'm shocked that it was good. And I know when you and I were emailing back and forth, just kind of the mention of it, because it was during the Depression.
Yeah,
So, sometimes those recipes have some wacky ingredients and are a little different. So I'm so impressed that it was good.
yeah.
Um, and I'm curious because we didn't talk about this. What was the what was was there a reason that it was in the newspaper, or it just was like a random like
It was
recipe and here's this person did it?
it was just pretty much a random recipe in there. There was one other recipe that was in there that wasn't hers, it was somebody else's, but I think it was
Yeah.
just in there. And this was even before my grandfather was born. He wasn't born yet when this recipe was even in the newspaper. His two
Wow.
brothers were already here, but he wasn't here yet. So I was like, my goodness, this predates him.
Yeah, that is just such a priceless story.
Yeah.
I love that, and it just is a great example of how important the stories actually are. Like you said,
Yeah, for sure. My grandpa's memory isn't so great. And so when I sent all this to my uncle and let him know, like, hey, this is what I found. This is what I wrote up about it, sent him my blog post and all these
yeah,
things. And he went to his dad, my grandpa, and said, hey, look what Aimee did and showed it to him. And it just made his whole day. His memory isn't so great anymore. So it jogged a little bit. He was looking at a young picture of his mama because I included a picture of her with that
oh,
post and things. And so he got to see his mom again and when she
yeah,
was nice and young, when he could remember, and he just stared at it the whole entire time. Now, that
yeah,
just made my day.
yeah.
That was more meaningful to me than even finding that recipe and baking it, is that it made his day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's why stories are so great because it's not just the one story, it's all
Mhm.
of the other stories and memories that one story can unlock for people.
Exactly.
So I love that. Amy, tell us, are there any resources or tools that you recommend for people that are just starting out? I really like to focus on those people that are kind of newbies and beginners. What are some good resources or tools?
Good resources when you're first starting out is Family Search.
Yeah,
Family Search is
for
a
sure.
free database that you can use. They have books that are digitized. Some of the books that you need may not be digitized, and you can go to any Family Search library and look at those on their computers for free. They
Yeah,
have the One World Tree where you can kind of look and get some hints to maybe where you need to research further and try to confirm things, but always, always, always confirm, confirm, confirm.
for
Verify that
sure.
information before you add it to your tree and make sure you find some supporting documentation for that. So that
Yeah,
documentation is key. You don't want to just keep willy-nilly adding names to your
yeah,
family tree without any sources because you won't have a good tree and you may end up having
yeah,
mistakes. But Family Tree or
yeah.
Family Search is a good place to go. Ancestry is really, really
Really.
good. They have a database also, but that is a paid service. It's not too
Yeah,
expensive for the value that you're getting. So you just pay
yeah,
that monthly fee, use it, and once you're finished, use with your family tree, and you feel like you're done searching or you want to take a break, you can always cancel that membership. But it's always a good place to have that source also because you never know what kind of records are going to be on one place that isn't on the other place. So I kind of like
right.
fish in all ponds kind of thing.
Yep.
Chronicling America is a really good one for some digitized newspapers. If you don't want to pay for a newspaper subscription, Chronicling America is also free, and they have a lot of wonderful old newspapers on there too. That's where I would start. When
Yeah.
you're trying to do your family tree, always start with yourself and with what you know. Don't think about trying to figure out who your third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th great grandparents are. Start with yourself
Yeah.
and work
Yeah.
your way slowly backwards and get those documentations to each generation. So start with what you know, which is going to be yourself. You know who your mom and dad are for the most part. Start with that, and then your grandparents, and then keep working yourself backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. And one thing that jogged my memory when you were talking about family search, and going to a family search library, I think that's important that
Mhm.
people know that and are aware. So I was working this weekend on my husband's tree, and I think that so many people, all of the records are going to be online, and everything I need is going to be available online, and that is just not the case. I think I found like five. Um, Marriage certificates and records that I needed, but I have to go to a family search library
Yeah.
in order to access those. So, um,
Another good place to access information, if you know where your family is from, the county, provided there wasn't any weird like natural disasters or a fire,
yeah,
you can go to the courthouse because all those
yeah,
records are there, the deeds are there, tax records. Like the courthouse has a lot of records that may not and probably are not digitized.
yeah. And I think too, Amy, that if I think a lot of places are good, and sometimes you might have to pay a small fee, but if
Yeah.
you don't live there, contact them anyway, because a lot of times
Yeah.
they're good and can look stuff up for you.
I
So,
have made a lot of phone calls. I've made some phone calls maybe I should not have made to like funeral homes, but I needed that information. I couldn't get it online. You have to pick up
that
the phone sometimes or send an
that
email to a
makes me laugh
library
so.
or whatever.
I would do the same thing. I think we're all, in that same boat.
Yeah.
Amy, tell me when it comes to writing family stories, and the one that you wrote about your grandmother and her recipe. I loved. I mean, crying my eyes out as I'm reading. It was just so good. What are some tips you have? People, I think, a lot of times feel overwhelmed when they are trying to write their family stories. So, what are some tips that you might have for people that are writing their stories?
Write down the facts. First
Yeah,
thing in a bullet point kind of thing, write down the facts that you want to cover in that story. And then from those facts, you can start building upon what you're trying to put out there, what you're trying to say. So just start with one little fact and then like, oh yeah, I need to cover this. So that way when you start to get writing, you don't get overwhelmed and forget a something or this or that or whatever
yeah,
little detail you wanted to include in there. And you don't go crazy with going like a kindergartner trying to tell a story and it takes them 12 hours to get to the point. So you don't end up like that. You get to the point, you say the facts that you need to, and you portray it as best you can. So do like a bullet point of all the facts that you need to come across and then start building upon those facts to make your story.
yeah. That is a great tip because I think you're right. People, kind of tend to wander off topic and go off in another direction,
Yeah.
and that is great. I love that tip. I'm writing that down. Um, I'm really excited about the next two questions. This one especially. For listeners with a family story about Native ancestry, what's a realistic step-by-step path forward? And I love this because I do think that, there are so many, you have those stories in your family that, are they real? Are they not? My
Yep.
grandmother is a prime suspect of this. She
My
always said that
husband's
we
family
had,
too.
yeah, Native American family history somehow, not that I've found, but if somebody wants to do that, has that story, how do they move forward in a realistic way?
So weirdly, geography matters. So
Uh,
know where your family is on a map and know which tribes were known to live in that area. So if you think your great grandmother is Cherokee, but you have Washington roots, Washington
yeah,
state roots, you're not going to be Cherokee because Cherokee never lived in that area. You'll have to
yeah,
look for maybe another local Washingtonian type of Native American tribe
yeah,
to look for those records. The other thing, which Family Search again, they have a good database of a lot of the native records. Fold
mm,
3, which is through Ancestry as a paid service, they also have a lot of those records. When I'm looking for Native American, a client to prove if they are Native or not, those are two of the big
yeah,
sites that I am using every
okay,
single case that I'm doing. So those look at the area that your family's from, identify what tribes are local into that area, looked to see what type of records they were documented on. Native Americans were heavily, heavily, heavily documented people. So there's a lot
Mhm.
of records for them. If you don't find your ancestor on one of those records, you're probably not going to be Native. The other clue, another red flag for me, is a census record. Native Americans
Okay.
did not become US citizens until 1924. So
Mm.
just over a hair over 100 years ago, 101 years ago, they became US citizens. So normally they were not enumerated on those earlier census records. There's a few that
Um,
kind of got in there because they were intermarried. However, for the majority of them, 1880s, 1870s, 1860s, 1850s, they're not going to be on a census
okay.
record. So if you
That's
see
good to
your
know.
family line on a census record, probably not going to be Native American.
Okay. That great tips. Great tips. And the geography matters. That makes total
Yes.
sense.
I always,
Um,
always look at geography before I even pick up my
yeah,
case and start diving in. I'm like looking to see where they're from, because that immediately gives me an idea of what records I need to look for. So if
yeah,
you're looking for like maybe a First Nations Native American, you know you're not going to look for a Dawes roll. So it helps you eliminate and save time on what records you're going to be looking for.
yeah. Do you ever, and can you use it, DNA, for any kind of
Oh, you're
native?
gonna get everybody to hate me now,
I'm
but
sorry.
no, you're good.
You
I
know
love
what's,
this question.
you
It
know,
causes controversy and stirs everybody up in the Native American community.
and
So
you know
yes,
everybody's going to ask.
yeah, yes and no. So yes, you can. So I've got a case that was a family was trying to figure out their Native American story. They had it passed down. They looked at, even though you can't say that you look Native, these people looked like my people. Like they
Yeah,
looked like my people.
yeah,
So can't go based on looks, but I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and see what we can find. I couldn't find much on the records, but one little thing kind of sought out to me. It like kind of stuck out, and it was the fact that there was an adoption, a undocumented adoption in the family line. So we turned to the DNA, and I'm looking at the DNA, and sure enough, yeah, she was native. We could track the ethnicity portion was on there. It
mhm.
said US and Canadian indigenous is what it said on there. So
Okay,
the DNA
okay,
portion that kind of fit in with what I was seeing with the DNA matches. The DNA matches were leading back to a Canard family, and they were native. They were Creek. And I found this family in the Dawes roll, and I kept on researching and researching, and I found a Dawes packet for this person specifically, and it was a rejection. And in that rejection, there was an interview with this baby's like dad that took her in. That took her in. They said we found the community found her on a fence post, and so we ended up taking her in, and we raised her. We know she's native. The mom that took her in was native also, so she was adopted in regardless. Either way, she should have been admitted in on the dolls because she was adopted in by this family. She was adopted.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they ended up rejecting her anyway. And when we were looking at that DNA, we led her to the Canard family directly with a bunch of matches. I mean, there was probably 20 plus matches that led directly. And when you triangulate, you're trying to find as many DNA matches as you can to start proving these great grandparent lines, great great grandparent lines, third great
right,
grandparent lines. And the more you prove, the more evidence you have to prove that, yes, you descend probably from this specific line. And that's what it was pointing to. And I ended up using the what are the odds tool on DNA Painter, Johnny Pearl's tool.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it was confirming what my hypothesis was. My top hypothesis is exactly confirming with that. So she was indeed probably going to be native. And we had the DNA matches, we had that
yeah,
ethnicity report, and we had that fold 3 document for the DAWs, all saying that yes, she is. We know who the family is. We're just not going to say who her biological parents are. And so,
yeah,
because they wouldn't spill the beans, the Dawes
yeah.
Commission rejected her application. So
Wow.
yeah, you can. You can. If there is ever any test that you do take and it's telling you 100%, it's going to tell you what tribe you come from. Do not pay for that test. It is a scam. No
Okay.
DNA test will ever tell you what tribe you are from. It may tell
Okay.
you that you are Mexican indigenous. It might say that your family came from South America. It may say that
Yeah.
you're Canadian indigenous or Canadian United States indigenous, but it's
Mhm.
never going to tell you what tribe you are from. You have to figure that out on your own. And those DNA
Yeah.
matches are those clues that could help you triangulate what your family tribe is going to be, where your
Yeah.
family is from. So, yes, it can, but it's not going to tell you what tribe you're from.
Right. Right. No, that's great. Great advice. I think that's very helpful to get people started. Wow. That is. I mean, you told me she's found on a fence post. That like broke my heart. That
Yeah,
is
she's a little bitty baby. She was
uh,
so small.
crazy. Oh, what a good story.
But
That is
she
incredible.
thrived. Her mom that raised her was from the same tribe that she was suspected to be from. So she was still
Oh,
in that culture and in that family
yeah,
unit.
yeah.
She learned the language. She speaks the language, and her granddaughter speaks the language. So even though she's
Oh,
not enrolled, the family line, that heritage, that culture has passed down through the generations.
I love that. Oh, that is so good. The next one I have question for you is DNA related, and we kind of touched on this a little bit before, but I think there are some people, and I've had people, I'm not that person, but I've had people like this contact me. Um, how would you start or send, or what are some tips that you have for people that want to reach out to potential DNA matches? Um,
So, depending on your situation, I would never lead off with I'm adopted or I don't know who my dad was or any of those things. I would never lead the email or the message with that.
yeah,
Sometimes people are afraid of secrets and they don't want secrets
yeah,
to come out. They don't want to be the ones to bring that secret to the family and they
yeah,
just don't want nothing to do with it. So that will scare them off, usually right off the bat. What
yeah,
I usually do is, hey, we match. We're DNA cousins. We are trying to figure out how we fit into each other's trees. I would love to connect with you and share our family information. Would you be able to share your great grandparents' names or your grandparents' names with me? And see if they reply back. That's usually what I
yeah.
do because technically you're not lying. You are a DNA
Right,
match. You do connect to them in their family tree somewhere. You're related somewhere. So it's not lying. You're just kind of not giving all of the information.
right. Well, and I think you said that so well. I mean, you don't want to start off with the shock and awe tactic.
Yeah.
And I have had a couple people do that to me, and that is such an immediate turn off. I have been doing this for a long time, but yeah, I just definitely think that's not the way to go about it.
Yeah, and I
So
understand their desperation. They want to know where they
yeah,
come from. That is a
sure,
that's a secret in somebody's family, and they want to
right,
know that information. They want to know their story. Why were they placed for adoption, or why dad never raised them? And is there
yeah,
medical information that I need to know? I knew that more than anybody. That medical
sure,
information is huge in your family history. But just knowing, like, am I German? Am I Italian? Like, where are
yeah,
we from? Did we do anything cool? Like, what is our story? So
yeah,
it's I understand the desperation of them trying to figure it out, but
yeah, for sure,
you have to tiptoe around
yeah,
that.
yes, tread lightly.
Yeah.
All right. I do have a favorite story coming up question for you, but this one I've added this question in the last few podcasts, and it's probably my favorite question that I ask people. If you could meet one ancestor, who would that be? And is there something special you would ask them?
Yes. I have I have a great great grandfather and he was Cherokee and he was a bigamist and he was in trouble. The Dawes Commission. I love the Dawes Commission so much. I don't agree with what they stood for, but I love these interviews because I get to be able to hear or read what they had said in these interviews from exactly from them. And he admits that he had multiple wives all over the place, and we're up to, I don't know, like 8 or 10 wives at this point. We're up to nearly 30 plus children. We actually just found another child of his in North Carolina before the forced removal. And we didn't even know she existed. Literally found her with the DNA from her descendants that had tested. I want to go back in time and like, who else is there? Like, how many more are there? There's more. There has to be more. But
For
there's
sure.
also a story that he got arrested and they sent him out of state for bigamy. They literally arrested
Mhm.
him for this charge. And there's a newspaper article about how he ended up getting thrown out of the prison because he was with the warden's wife too.
No.
I'm like, what are you doing?
No.
I have so many questions for him. So many questions.
Holy cow. Oh my
Like bigamy is
gosh.
not a thing. Like this isn't a thing in Cherokee. Like this wasn't the norm. This wasn't it. This isn't how. Like I have questions. I have so many questions. I want to know how many more there are and what it was going through his mind and what his mama thought.
That is mind blowing. Like I am just first of all, I'm shocked. So it was in the newspaper
It was
that
in
he
the
was with
newspaper.
that that just kills me. I
Yeah,
say all the time, the newspaper is Facebook in the 1800s for
yeah,
sure. I
it is.
mean, wow. So, Amy, what time frame was that?
This was it started around 1860s, 70s
Okay,
ish.
okay. Wow, that is just incredible. And I'm like you. I mean, there have to be more.
Oh
There are.
yeah, there's more. There's 100% more.
Wow. Oh my gosh,
And he had no
that's
shame in it. Like he was telling the Dawes
yeah,
Commission about how he had a family in Texas and he just up and left them and got married again to somebody in North Carolina or Oklahoma. And the North Carolina one was before the 1880s. That one was one of the earlier ones.
yeah,
But yeah, he was
yeah.
just like spilling all the tea, like didn't even care.
So did
No
he
secret.
when he had these families, did he go back to the family or he would just up
Not
and
that
leave
I,
that family
mm-mm.
and start over?
Not that I can tell, not that I can tell from the records. I can't see
Oh,
any evidence of him going back. I see
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much the wives remarrying or staying single
yeah,
with the children.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that is just mind blowing to me. Wow,
Yeah.
yeah, he would definitely be a favorite of mine. Do you have any pictures of him?
Don't have any pictures,
Yeah,
sadly.
yeah, yeah,
I'm on the hunt for a couple of mugshots in my family, and that's
yeah,
one of the ones on the top of my list.
yeah, for sure. I am more fascinated by mugshots than I probably should be. Like those are fascinating to
I've
me.
been doing on TikTok a bunch of mugshots where I pull up the mugshots and find the newspaper articles to see exactly what happened and try to trace them after
Yeah,
their trouble spell to see what
yeah.
happened to them. I've been doing that on TikTok. I need to get back to it. I've kind of took about a week off, 2 weeks off.
I love that. I want that. I need to know that account so I can follow that because that's amazing.
Yeah, you just
Um,
look for my name.
yeah, okay. That is crazy amazing. I was on one the other day. I was talking to a friend and I'm trying to think, I don't even know. I think it was California. Um, mugshots, but it was a really interesting one because it had two photos of every person and they were like
Yep.
vertical together and it was like when they were arrested and then the bottom one was like them in prison, I guess, because for
Shaved
the men
heads.
like yes, yeah,
Yeah, if you go back a little bit further, they have three photos where it's they're in normal clothes. One of them has a hat, no hat, and then the shaved head. So they'll have three pictures if you go back a little bit further.
that is great. That is so crazy. Wow. That is I cannot get down another rabbit hole, Amy.
I'm sorry. There's some good ones on
All
there
good.
too.
All right. So I'm gonna if you have another story, I love hearing incredible stories, which you've given us a bajillion. Are there any other or even any that you've worked with DNA, any like memorable ones, surprising ones that you've uncovered doing your research?
That first one that I did when after my great grandfather, the one where the guy was trying to look for his biological grandfather,
Yeah.
his mom's birth father, that was from Panama. We were on a wild goose chase with that one. I don't speak Spanish, and
Yeah.
so a lot of these records and things we
Yeah.
had to use Google Translate. He was
Yeah.
trying to translate some of them because he kind of understood Spanish. So it was like a team effort with him and with people that were in Panama trying to figure out the
Sure.
family story, the family history. And we were able to trace this family from Spain. The however many great grandmother, she was actually from Spain. So we were able to trace his family line. He went from knowing absolutely nothing about his family history to have this huge family tree, all of these DNA matches. And these DNA matches, man, let me tell you, they were busting their behinds to kind of help us in this
Yeah.
quest. They were calling people from Panama, and then there's a couple people still in Mexico that they were calling, trying to get family information that they didn't even know. And we landed
Wow.
on one of three brothers. They had left Panama and came to New York City. They all three lived in an apartment together. So I knew it was one of those three men. That's all I could get to. And
Yeah.
my little spidey senses were saying, like, it's got to be this one. Like, I don't know what it is, but it has to be this one. And so my client ended up going to call the family and said, hey, we're related to you. We don't know exactly how we're related to you. My mom is trying to figure out who her family is and where she comes from. Would you guys be willing to help? And so they said, yeah, let's do a DNA test. So the interesting thing is my client's mom was 67 years old at the time. The boy who DNA tested was 21 years old. and it was her half brother. Like this man had a huge age gap between all of his children. And so as a genetic genealogist, that's going to like throw a wrench into things. If we did not know that he was actually the son of the suspected birth father, that we thought it was a birth father, we would have looked at the generational. That's got to be a grandchild, right? Like looking at the
Oh,
ages,
yeah.
that's got to be a grandchild. That would have confused the heck out of us if we did not know that family story as well as we did. But yeah, he tested as a half brother. And so they went to the suspected birth father, had him DNA test. He was super excited. He was in his 90s at this point, and he did the DNA test, and it was positive. He was a direct match as a parent-child match to her. And they formed a super amazing relationship. I actually have that in my blog post too. It's one of the first ones that I did on my website. But yeah, they had a great relationship. He passed away not too long ago, and this family that was never a part of his family that we discovered, and they were a part of the whole thing. Their family, they're super, super close now. Doesn't always end that way, but those
Yeah.
happy endings, they get me every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time. And those are the ones I usually try to tell people like, yeah, these are the good ones. These are the happy stories. So don't give up hope. If you're scared to reach out or you're scared to start this journey of learning of where you come from, sure, it's not always sunshine and roses, but it could be. And you don't want to
Yeah.
wait till it's too late. If we would have waited
Yeah.
any longer, like I said, he's in his 90s. He may not have been here.
Yeah. That is, I've seen a lot of age differences, but that one blows my mind.
I was like, oh
That's
my goodness.
crazy.
My client and his family, they all went to Panama to go meet some of the family that was over there. They actually made the
Huh.
trip a couple of times to Panama, which I think is super, super
Wow.
amazing. They had this whole culture. They grew up Italian. They grew up in
Yeah.
this Italian culture, and they embraced the new identified biological father's culture, and they immersed themselves in it. And that's who they are. And I
Yeah.
love that they suck out
Yeah.
their heritage and their culture, trying to figure out who they are and their
Yeah.
people and all of those things and try to adopt some of those, trying to learn more about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I love that, they went to see them. I think so. Do you work on any, like, when people, so that person, you said they had Spanish ancestors. I'm not
Yep.
sure how far back that was,
It was
but
pretty far. It was pretty
was
far.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious with DNA, do you ever have people come to you that are trying to get like citizenship
Yes.
in other countries? Yeah.
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 One of the big ones that I get is I think Ireland and
Yeah.
Italy. Those
Yeah.
are the two that I've gotten.
Yeah.
And then of course Native American. I get the Native Americans
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah.
But usually 9 out of 10 times I end up finding out that they're from somewhere else. And then I always try
Yeah.
to give them like a cool history. Like, I'm sorry, you're not
Yeah.
Native American. However, your family comes from Scotland and they were
Yeah.
from this castle or that they did this in history or whatever.
Yeah.
I try to give them something positive, even though I know I've crushed them because I've had this family story for so long that they're Cherokee or that they're this or they're that. And
Yeah.
I have to break it to them. And I try to do it as gently as I can because I know that that's detrimental to them and to their family story that has been passed down for so long. But I try to give them something else to hold on to, that's something that they can attach to, be like, oh, that is a really cool history. Let me go ahead and look more into that and figure out where I'm from,
Yeah.
just like with the Panama thing. The
Yeah.
whole thing, he like, oh, that's pretty cool. Let's learn more about Panama. So I try to give them something that they can kind of hold on to kind of like, oh, that
Sure.
is pretty cool. That's a cool history.
Yeah. I think that, first off, I think that it's crazy to me how that, those stories, they do become so ingrained in a
They are.
family.
Yeah, it is. It's
And
their identity. It's
yes,
literally their identity.
yeah. And I do think that when, oh, Jen was on with me a couple months ago, Holleran, and we were talking about it and how when you have those stories and people, it's not it's not what you thought. You don't have, Cherokee um, ancestry like you thought you did. It's almost like you're grieving a part of you
It
that
is. Yeah.
you've lost.
And I completely
So
understand that.
yeah, yeah, I love that you try to spin the positive. I think that's great. Well, Amy, as we end up here, what last piece of advice do you have for people, just wanting to kind of jump in and get started? What would you tell them?
Always know that your family story isn't who you are. You might find things that are not so good and it might break your heart, but remember that what they did is not what you do. You can only control what you do. You might have a cool story, or you might have something that you run into, like maybe they were slave owners, whatever the case may be. Just know that that is a part of history and it's not who you are. Your ancestors did whatever they did, and that's out of your control. Because I know a lot of people have a hard time when they do get into this of finding some of the things. You might find that maybe they were criminals, or I have bigamists in my family. So just
Yeah.
know that you're here for a reason, but what they've done is nothing about who you are as a person. You can only control what you do and you do alone. And look for those cool stories and make sure you document everything that you find. Go find your grandparents if they're still living, if they're still with us, or even your great grandparents if they're still here, if you're young enough to have them, and have them talk about their life and their parents and their grandparents and their struggles in different types of history, like during the Depression. What did they
Yeah.
do? How did they survive? What are some things that you can write down and document to add to your family tree? So when you have left this earth, your children, your grandchildren, everything's digitized is out there. It's not going anywhere. They
Yeah.
have access to the work that you have done and they can read those stories. So those names aren't just empty names on a tree that you have nothing about. They don't mean anything to anybody. When you attach those stories, it means something to somebody. So make
Yeah.
sure you document, 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 and don't take anything your ancestors did to heart because it's not, it's just what happened back then.
Yeah. I love that, and I needed to hear that today. That is such great advice. That was a great way for us to end. Well, Aimee, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure for me to have you on today, and I'm honored that you spent time with me. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to do this anytime. I love it.
Yeah, love it. We'll need to do it again. Until next time, friends, embrace the power of your family's untold tales and embark on a journey of discovery. Let the ink flow and the words dance as you weave together threads of your ancestors' lives. Start writing your family stories today and let their voices echo through the generations to come at story.com. Have a super day, everyone. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the Family Treehouse, where we celebrate the power of storytelling and preserving our family legacies. Storied is more than just a platform for sharing stories. Dive into those historical records and newspapers, discovering the hidden gems that bring your ancestors to life. Add branches to your family tree, connecting the dots between generations. Thank you for joining us on this storytelling journey. Your stories matter, and through story, they have the power to resonate across time and touch the hearts of generations to come. Keep uncovering your family's history and keep the spirit of storytelling alive with Storied.